Alright, editing. Better grab that cup of coffee and a comfortable chair. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most frustrating part of making a YouTube video. Hey everyone, welcome back to more in the video. Today we're going to be talking about the post-production phase. I know some of you with this same love-hate relationship, and I just want to start off by saying I do not hate editing. I actually love editing. It's just some parts of it gets on my nerves sometimes, but I believe that there is a beauty in editing. There's something satisfying about watching it come together like a Lego set. Editing, in my opinion, is basically building a Lego set without an instruction book. I used to build Legos without instruction books all the time. Came up with some pretty cool stuff, I might say. But when you're editing, there's a lot of choices you have to make right from the beginning and right to the end. It's a bit more of a complicated sector than filming, and it's a bit of a learning curve. But don't worry, this episode I will be guiding you guys through it, and once you get the concept, it won't be as complex as you think. It's like math. When you're in 6th grade, you think algebra is so complicated, but once you actually learn it, it all makes sense. Okay, so this process is actually going to be broken down into 2 episodes. In the next episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more about workflows and a little bit more detail into what editing softwares can do and how to make your editing more efficient. And we'll also talk about some of my own editing setups and some mindsets that I use myself when I edit. But in this episode, I'm going to introduce you into this world of computer editing. Mobile editing also works. I was introduced into editing through mobile, but the reason why I'm not covering mobile editing is because mobile editing software are actually more intuitive, and computer softwares tend to be not. I don't want you guys to be scrolling through endless YouTube videos to find the exact one that you want. So I'll go through computer editing in this particular series. Alright, so before we start editing, let's talk about some terms that might be helpful to you when you are watching the demonstration that we're about to begin. Let's come to the first term, B-roll. So in film and television production, B-roll or B-reel is supplemental or alternative footage intercut with the main shot. Now, the term A-roll referring to the main footage has fallen out of use. Basically, B-roll is if you've got this shot of someone talking, and B-roll could be this shot that comes in while they're talking about something. So let's say they're talking about the subway or whatever. Say it's like a documentary on subway and this person is talking. We can cut to the B-roll. Now, in this case, the subway shot is the B-roll. Now, I consider my footages that I put in on top of this little chalkboard that I've created B-roll. So this could be B-roll, this could be B-roll, or that could be B-roll. Moving on, frame rate. Frame rate expressed in frames per second, or FPS, is the frequency rate at which consecutive images called frames appear on a display. The term usually applies equally to film and video cameras, computer graphics, or motion capture systems. So basically what happens is video is captured by many pictures taken at a very fast rate, and if it's taken at a slower frame rate, it will not be as clear. There will be some sort of a lag and the resolution won't be as good. But if it's really fast, it'll be really clear, because it's like a flip book. You know, if you have less pictures to flip through, it's like there's gonna be like there's gonna be weird cuts everywhere, and like it's not gonna be very as enjoyable or smooth. But if you have many pictures, and let's say this is 60 frames per second, that's many pictures, it's gonna be a much smoother experience. So 30 frames per second tends to be the standard that I use. I'm currently shooting at 30 frames per second, so that's every second there'll be 30 pictures basically. So we're gonna talk about this in just a second, but I do want to talk about what a timeline is, because that's the backbone of the editing software. So I looked on Wikipedia as for all of these definitions, and I found 2 definitions. Number 1, in video editing, timeline is a commonly used interface found in most video editing programs. This interface enables authors to lay a video project out in a linear fashion horizontally across a monitor. And number 2, a chronological display of an edited sequence in a non-linear editing system. And we will be talking about what that means right now. So again, I hope that you guys will come into video editing with an open mind. Hopefully, I will be able to explain this in a non-complicated way, and hopefully you guys will leave with knowing something about video editing. So let's jump straight into it. Alright, so for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be using a software called Davinci Resolve 16 by Blackmagic Design. I am in no way affiliated or being sponsored by them, so you're welcome, Blackmagic, for the free advertisement. But Davinci Resolve is a free software, and it's been the software that I've changed to. I used to be in Premiere, but I am now a Davinci Resolve editor. So I'll talk a little bit about why I switched in the next episode, but for this episode, we're going to be introducing you guys to the world of computer editing. So let's start right now. Let's start with opening a new project. So just click new project. Let's just name this. Just call this my Davinci project. Okay, let's hit create. And the first thing that you're going to want to know about is actually in Davinci Resolve, there are 7 of these tabs. So by default, you land straight into it, you land into the cut tab. Okay, so let's start with media. So the media is where all your media, so all your video, audio, and pictures, all of that comes in here. Okay, so let's import some footage. So basically how you import footage is you click file, import media, or you could do Control-I or Command-I if you are on Mac. Okay, so once you dump in this footage, right, let's just skip the cut tab for now. Okay, so now we have a clip in here. Okay, so let's jump to the edit tab, and this is where you are going to start the timeline. Okay, so how you create a timeline is you hit Control-N or Command-N if you are on Mac. I am not on a Mac right now, I'm on Windows, so apologies if I am not going to give Mac translations every single time, but I think you guys will be able to go through it. Let's just call this rough cut, okay? And the one very important thing to know is what frame rate your clip is at. So let's actually go to that folder. So I've actually found my clip that I'm going to be using, IMG0171, and let's open up properties. Okay, so when you go to properties, you can go to details and you can check out 30 frames per second. So you can check the resolution. Also, this is a 4K clip, so this is 30 frames per second. So let's make sure we have 30 frames per second in here, right? So custom settings, format, and I'm going to keep this at 1080 because I don't want this to be a 4K project. It's going to be way too big, but we are going to change this to 30 frames per second just so that it doesn't lag or mess up our video. Always make sure your project frame rate is the same as your clip frame rate, okay? So you can either find your frame rate by looking at properties, which we just looked at, or you can change that in your phone settings if you're using a phone, or a camera if you have a camera. Okay, so that's all in settings. So let's hit create. Okay, so now we have a rough cut. So now it just jumped into our media pool right here. So if we go to media, we can check it here. So this media tab is just so if you have a bunch of like hundreds of footages, you can come here and just sort through them and put them into bins and stuff. You can put them in different folders, subfolders, and it won't change anything. But you can also look at media through here, which is very helpful because from here, what we're going to do is we are going to take this clip of me walking and we are going to drag it in. Okay, so you drag it into the timeline, and now we can see. Let's bring up that definition of timeline again. Where is that? In video editing, a timeline is a commonly used interface found in most video editing programs. This interface enables authors to lay a video project out in a linear fashion horizontally across the monitor. So as you can see, this interface, this timeline, is allowing me to lay a video project out horizontally. So this is the timeline. And let's put another clip in here actually. And basically what you can do is you can just keep putting it in and just hit play. And by the way, this little red thing right here, this is called the playhead. So where your playhead is at which point of the clip it is. Okay, so your playhead lets you know which point of the clip it is, and you can just move it around. You can drag it around, and as you can see, if I drag it over here, it changes, right? And I move it over, it changes again, and if I move it over here, it'll change because obviously when we press play, that's a clip of me walking. Okay, this is a clip from The Power of Passion, a little motivational video or film I made a little while back. And once it comes to this line right here, so if you zoom in, and once it comes to this line, it will cut to the next clip. Okay, so this is the next clip. So in chronological order, if it's playing, and once it passes this line, it's going to go to the next clip, which is IMG 0179. So that's basically how the timeline works. Let's talk about the toolboxes right now. The toolbox, I'm gonna name this toolbox over here on the left side toolbox 1, and this toolbox over here toolbox 2. And what you can do with the toolbox there are different categories for things, right? So video transitions. So if I click video transitions over here, there's cross, dissolve. Let's just drag that in. There's a very standard transition right here. So if I put that in, as you can see, it's gone black, and that's because if we hit play, it will fade in, right? So the cross dissolve is basically a fade, and what you can do is you can play around with a bunch of these transitions. There are a bunch of really cool ones, but I will not talk about them too much right now. You can also do audio transitions. So if you have like music or whatever, you have audio transitions. That's all the stuff around here you can play with. So basically, same thing, same concept. You drag it into the timeline. And by the way, this timeline right here, it's separated into two parts. Okay, so the blue is the video and the green is the audio. I think you guys should have seen that by right over here. As you can see, audio 1. Let's move on to Toolbox 2. We'll come back here, don't worry. So Toolbox 2, there's a variety of tools that you can use. So it's basically like Photoshop. For those of you who use it, you can hit the blade tool for say, and you can cut this clip in half. It's basically splitting the clip, and what you can do is you can also, let's return to the move tool, and what you can do when you hover over, here's a little lesson on cutting. You can drag the clip over. So if you have these two clips selected, you can drag the clip over. And all right, so let's say that I want, from this backpack shot, I want suddenly cut to me starting to walk. So I can drag this all the way over, and what I can do is I can select this space right here, and I can hit delete and select audio, hit delete, so that the audio is still synced. And as you can see, there will be the cut there. So once it comes to this line, it will cut to the footage of me walking, right? So let's say this is the backpack shot, and suddenly cut, it cuts to me walking suddenly, and then suddenly cut, it cuts to this other shot of me walking down a hallway. Okay, so that's cutting right there. It's very simple, not too complicated. You can also delete clips just by moving them over each other. Now, as you can see, if I move it around, it's been deleted. So I can just do that. And as you can see over here on the right side, there will be the playback, as you guys have been seeing. But what is this right side over here? All right, so let me demonstrate. Okay, so let's say I had hold on, let me move to a place where you can actually see me. So this is a place where this is the part of the clip where I'm walking down the corridor, and let's go over here. Continuing on the 7 tabs. So Fusion is for VFX, so I don't really use that, right? But I do use the color grading tab quite a bit, so you can change the color completely of your clip. So let's say I want this to have a purple hue, turn up the gain quite a bit, so then suddenly that's like, so I changed up the whole clip basically. And we go over here, and so as you can see, I changed up the whole clip, right? But what if I want to view the original clip? So I just go over here to the media pool, and I just double click on that, and that shows me the pre-edited footage, and over here we have the after edited footage. So this is what it's going to show. This is what it currently looks like in your final product. And as you can see, that's the footage of me walking right there. And if I add titles, all right, so here's how you add titles. You add text right here. There's like the transitions. It's exactly like the transitions. So I just add text right here. And what you do is you're going to be using this tab a lot as well, the inspector tab. All right, so just turn on the inspector tab. Okay, so what you can also do is, and we're going to be using this little tab here a lot, just open up inspector. You can actually type out text. So let's say film by Yinsu. Just change that to a font I want, and you can change sizes and stuff like that. And this is just standard text, right? You can also have, there's also a bunch of these other ones, like other preset animated ones. So I'm just dragging in one right now. As you can see, first line of text, you can just put, it'll animate in, so it's actually pretty cool. As you can see, it slides in like that. So that's titles right there. Over here, you can also see that there's video and audio options. So the inspector tab is something you're gonna be using a lot. So you can basically zoom in your clip, you can zoom out your clip, you can reposition your clip, move it over a little bit, right? Rotation angle, stuff like that, all sorts of cool stuff that you can do in the inspector tab. You can also turn down the opacity. So currently, this clip is on a black background, but let's say I have my walking clip underneath, right? What I can do is I can turn down my opacity, right? So basically what I did was I brought my clip up, so it created a new video track. So basically now this is like a layer above the walking clip, which is 171, right? So if I turn down the opacity on this pink clip right here, as you can see, now there will be two clips playing at once because they're kind of like layered on top of each other, and this is pretty cool. It's basically like sheets of glass, like you can just put them over each other and you can see the thing underneath, right? If you turn up the opacity. So that's the method of stacking, or what I like to call stacking. So it's basically you just keep adding video on top. So let's import another clip. Actually, if we import this photo, I believe right here, and suddenly, so if we hit play, once it hits this area right here, it will go to that stone image right there. Alright, so that's the method of stacking, and that's basically how video editing softwares work on the computer. I was introduced into video editing softwares on mobile where you couldn't stack, so this was very new to me, right? But you will get it in time and with practice, just by stacking up stuff. You won't do it, I guess, in your beginning videos. If you're not doing anything fancy, you will not probably be doing a whole lot of stacking. What I did for just the beginning of my videos was I literally just created a project, and then I just put the videos that they were to be ordered in, and I just did that. Nowadays I have a lot more stuff that I add, like little stuff that make my videos more interesting, and we will be talking about how I do that in the next episode, where we talk about a little bit more intermediate. But I would recommend that you start out with nothing as fancy. Just grind out your first couple of videos, right? Focus on making the content. Again, understand your experience level. I mean, if it's your first couple of videos and you really don't have any experience, I wouldn't recommend trying to do any fancy stuff in the beginning. You will learn that as you go. What you can also do in the toolbox over here is you can generate effects. So if I have like a blur, what I can do is I can just drag this out and drag it onto the top of the clip. So as you can see, I created a blur there, and what you do is you can open the inspector, and you can now there's a different category, open FX, and you can do horizontal strength or like vertical strength or whatever like that, or you could just completely turn it off. I don't think we have a whole lot of time today to talk about keyframes, but I will try to talk about keyframes, and I'm not going to go too much, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but I do want to talk a little bit about what keyframes are. So let's open up opacity, right? I'm actually going to toggle this icon right here. This is the opacity timeline, right? So if this is a clip of me walking, okay? So let's say I put a keyframe right here, okay? So just think of these keyframes as markers in time. So at this point in time right here, this diamond right here, the opacity was at 100%. But if I go over here and I turn this to, let's say, 80, okay? So now the opacity is at 80. So everything in between these two keyframes was the opacity turning from 100 to 80 gradually. So as you can see, it's moving slowly, and I can move it over here and it will be a much more gradual fade. And if I move it really close to it, it will be a very fast fade, right? And I can add even more right here. I can add to like a 39. And now what I can do is I can put another keyframe. I'm going to put another keyframe. This is at 39. As you can see, the graph it's just coming down, right? And I can just turn this back up to 100. So as you can see, these are keyframes. I first learned keyframes through opacity, and this is something that you're going to be doing a lot, especially if you don't want to use transitions, and if you want something more precise, right? So as you can see, it faded down, and once it hit this is the lowest point. But then I hit the lowest point right here again, right? This is at 39, and it went back up to 87. But what happens if I didn't have this? Well, obviously, so let's redo that, right? Let's say this was, let's move this back to 39, okay? So if I skip this other 39 right here, just think of this as a duplicate, and I just moved it back up to 80, that means that from here to here, and this 39 right here didn't exist, from here to here there will happen a line right here, and it will happen gradually fading, starting from here, fading to 100%. Okay, so that's basically how keyframes work. You can also use it in audio, okay? But again, I don't want to go way too detailed into keyframes because we will be talking about keyframes next episode. So you can use keyframes to make the audio volume gradually fade out and then fade back in again. You kind of get the point, right? Okay, so that's basically how video editing works. I'm just trying to think if I had missed anything. It's all about just perfecting it and finding which points you want it to come in, and we'll definitely be talking about mindsets in the next episode and some of the strategies that I use. I'm really excited for this process of video editing because this really is one of my favorite parts of making a video, but it can be also very frustrating. So go into this with patience, because maybe you do not have the skill just yet. You can definitely improve, and I hope that some of the tips that I share in the next episode will help you out. But you know, your software will crash on you. Render time will take a lot. And by the way, the render is over here in the deliver tab, the last tab that we'll be talking about for this episode. And it's actually the last tab. And what you can do is you can add this project to the render queue, and then you can just render it out as an MP4. and it'll be ready to upload to YouTube, and we'll definitely be talking about that next episode. So this episode, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. I'm leaving a whole lot of stuff for the next episode, and I'm really excited for that. So stick around, and before we actually wrap things up, I want to talk about what the cut tab is. And the cut tab is basically a dedicated tab where you can cut different things, obviously. So there's this scissor icon right here, and I can just hit the scissor icon and just cut it as I please, and it'll also change in editing tab right here. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this episode, and what you're gonna also want to do is to save this project. All right, so what you do is save and export project, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually move this to episode 4, and we're gonna put this new folder called mock edit, and we're gonna save it right here. Okay, so make sure all your stuff is saved, because it will save you a lot of time and grief. But other than that, that's gonna be it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys learned something out of it. For those of you more intermediate editors out there, we are gonna be talking about some of the mindsets that I use in the next episode, so stay tuned for that. That's gonna be coming out next week at this time. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope you are inspired by this series. I've been having a lot of fun making episodes for this so far. We are currently episode 4 out of 10 in, so we're almost at the halfway point. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please consider hitting that like button and leaving a comment down below. Say hi to us. We would love to hear. I love feedback from you guys. And if there's anything that you guys want me to add or talk about, there's definitely room for that ahead. And we will be doing a Q&A at the end of this series. We might do a Q&A if we get enough questions. So you start leaving your questions now. We will be recording them, okay? So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.